Fran Ambrose, who hosts a popular radio show, talks about the topic of killing one's mother with her guest, Dr. Leo Richmond, a psychiatrist. They speak with Raymond Lynette, a man recently released on parole after killing his own mother. During the talk, they find out Raymond's grandfather, George, helped him get out of prison. This is surprising, since George's daughter was the one Raymond killed, but George says he doesn't feel bad for her and believes she didn't deserve someone like Raymond as a son. Later, a caller asks if women also kill their mothers. Dr. Richmond says it's not as common among women as it is with men. Fran wonders if that's because women are better at hiding what they've done. Dr. Richmond then recalls his first case involving someone who killed his mother. It happened around 30 years ago, and the man tried to believe his mother was still alive so he wouldn't have to face what he did. After speaking with Raymond, Fran takes a call from a man who calls himself Ed. He says he understands why some men kill their mothers, because he did it too. He also claims to have killed several women, starting with a stranger who only wanted to be close to him. Now, he says, he might have to kill again. Ed reveals his real name is Norman. He remembers the first woman he killed. She had asked him if he wanted to watch the fireworks, but Norman said he had to stay in the motel office to help some guests. A couple soon told him their toilet was clogged, so he stepped away to fix it. While he was gone, the woman sneaked into his house to play a prank on him. Norman became anxious when he couldn't find her. When he did, they ended up in his room, and she invited him to join her on the bed. But before anything happened, Norman heard a loud noise outside. Worried it was his sick mother, he rushed to her room. His mother's voice told him to kill the woman, warning that no other woman should come into their home. She said she wanted Norman to stay her sweet little boy and best friend forever, but as Norman sat by the bed, it became clear he was imagining her voice. His mother was already dead. Her body lay there, lifeless. Norman then put on her clothes and wig. When the woman came looking for him, she walked into the room. Dressed as his mother, Norman attacked and killed her. After hearing Norman's story, Fran is left stunned. Dr. Richmond then asks him where he was living when he killed his mother, but Norman avoids the question and suddenly hangs up. Right after, Norman gets a call from his wife, Connie. She asks him to pick up a birthday cake for himself, but he says it's bad luck to do that. So Connie decides to have it delivered to her workplace instead. She also asks if he's still upset about the news she gave him earlier. Norman answers in a quiet, unfriendly way. Afterward, Norman calls the radio station again and gets back on the air. Fran sounds happy to hear from him and quickly starts asking more questions. Norman says his mother confused him. Sometimes she was kind, but other times cold and distant. He adds that she treated his father the same way before he died when Norman was 6. Norman remembers his father's funeral, saying he died from a bee attack. During the service, his mother tickled him to make him laugh. When he did, she slapped him and told him to show respect for the dead. As he thinks about that day, Norman imagines his father's body trying to climb out of the coffin. But he snaps out of it when his neighbor, Mrs. Lane, knocks on the door. She tells him that Connie called and said the cake is on its way. Norman quickly sends Mrs. Lane away and gets back to the radio show. Before ending the call, Fran gently asks Norman to say something nice about his mother. Norman smiles as he remembers how his mother always kept her hair tied up, but when they were alone, she would let it down. That's what he remembers most, her beautiful hair. In those moments, he felt like he meant everything to her. He then begins to talk about a man his mother once dated. Norman says she didn't need anyone else because he felt like he was already the man of the house. At just 15, he was running the motel on his own, and his mother depended on him for almost everything. One stormy night, she got frightened by the thunder and called him from the office. Norman came to her room, soaked from the rain. She asked him to change out of his wet clothes and stay close to her. He did as she asked, but soon felt uncomfortable and left the room quickly. His mother followed and seemed unsure of what had happened. While in his room, she looked through some magazines on his desk. One of them upset her, and she told Norman to throw it away. As he was about to get dressed, she told him to step outside in the rain, saying it would wash away anything bad. Back in the present, Dr. Richmond asks Norman if he had ever felt jealous of his mother's boyfriend. Norman replies that he never saw his mother that way. Norman says that most people think his mental issues came from his family history. He believed this too, especially after seeing how his mother acted over time. He then shares one of the most disturbing memories he has of her. The summer before he killed her, there was a terrible heat wave in their town. His mother hated the heat. One day while Norman was pouring her a drink, she asked him to rub orange flower water on her skin. He didn't want to, but he did it anyway. At first it seemed harmless. They laughed and tickled each other. But then his mother suddenly brought up the old incident with the magazine. She got angry, pushed Norman away, and forced him to put on women's clothes. She told him that if he acted like a lady, he'd forget what it was like to be a man. She even put lipstick on him and locked him in a closet, calling him Norma. As Norman shares this painful memory, he lies down on the floor, acting out what it felt like to be trapped in that closet. Then he suddenly says he'll call back later and ends the call. While he's gone, Dr. Richmond goes to speak with the production team. He tells them that the caller, Ed, is actually Norman Bates, a known serial killer who used to be his patient. Believing him, the team agrees to carefully continue the conversation to understand why Norman might kill again. Knowing Norman is from Fairvale, California, they send someone there to see if he's still living at the old motel. Soon after, Norman calls the radio show again, but he gets annoyed by Dr. Richmond's tone and questions. Just as he's about to hang up, Fran quickly steps in and gently asks what life was like after he killed his mother. Norman begins to talk about a time when a new motel opened in Fairvale. His mother was furious, afraid they'd lose business. She took out her anger on him, yelling that he had no feelings, just like her own father. She even shouted that she wished she had never given birth to him, blaming him for everything going wrong in her life. Fran, shocked, says his mother sounded terrible, but Norman defends her, saying she wasn't always like that. He says she used to be an amazing woman. At that moment, Dr. Richmond interrupts, sarcastically saying she was so remarkable that Norman ended up killing her. Fran quickly cuts to a break and privately tells Dr. Richmond that she'll take over the conversation from now on. She explains that Norman seems angry with the doctor and might shut down if he keeps talking. Just then, someone from the production team comes in with an update. Norman left the motel shortly after the murders and hasn't been seen there since. Before going back on the air, Fran tells Dr. Richmond to step back from the interview, but he refuses, insisting she can't safely speak with a dangerous person like Norman without a trained expert. Fran and the production team decide not to let Dr. Richmond continue on the show. Upset, he leaves and warns that they'll be responsible if Norman hurts someone again. Fran then goes back on air. Norman shares that it's his birthday and that his wife will be home soon. When Fran asks how they met, Norman explains that she was a psychologist at the hospital where he stayed. Fran continues asking questions and finds out that they live in a house his wife got from a previous marriage. The conversation turns to how Norman killed his mother. He says it didn't happen all at once. It was something that built up over time. What finally pushed him over the edge was when she started bringing her boyfriend home. Norman remembers secretly watching them through a hole in the wall. The next morning, he was clearly upset, and his mother realized he had seen what happened. She proudly told him that her boyfriend, Chet, would be moving in, and that they would marry once Chet's divorce was final. Right after, Chet walked in wearing Norman's father's old robe. Norman asked him to take it off, but Chet made a rude comment instead. A few days later, Chet asked Norman to spar with him. During the match, Chet used it as a chance to pick a fight and hit him hard on purpose. While remembering the past, Norman recalls how Chet and his mother laughed at him as he lay on the ground. The memory makes him so angry that he snaps an apple in half. Then he goes quiet, and Fran decides to pause the show. When Norman returns to the call, Fran asks if his mother has anything to do with the recent killings. He says not directly, but admits she still has a strong influence over him. After his last crimes 4 years ago, he wanted to stay away from the world. He even asked his mother, at least in his mind, if she could help keep him from hurting anyone again. He explains that his goal now is to protect people from Norman Bates. That confirms his identity, and Fran allows him to keep talking. Norman says that instead of being executed, he was sent to a place called Cydonia, where he received intense treatment. Fran then asks why he would risk everything by killing again. She wonders if he's hoping someone will stop him. Norman replies that she's wrong and proves it by hanging up. Fran, overwhelmed by the conversation, asks Norman to hold while she takes another call. But the new caller keeps talking about him, which prompts Norman to speak again. He begins to talk about his second victim, an older woman. That night they were sitting in her car, getting close. Norman left for a moment, saying he needed to give his mother her medicine. While he was gone, the woman overheard what sounded like his mother's voice, accusing him of having impure thoughts and pressuring him to kill. Norman says he got into a woman's car dressed like his mother and strangled her. He thought she was dead, put her in the trunk, and pushed the car into a swamp, but she was still alive and cried for help, which shocked him. Fran asks if his mother makes him want to kill again. Norman says no. She's gone. But after she died, he felt empty and kept her body through taxidermy. Fran warns that if he kills again, his wife will feel that pain. Norman says his wife deserves it, shocking Fran. Worried, Fran mutes her mic and tells the team to alert the press. Back on air, she asks why he would hurt his wife. Norman says she got pregnant without telling him, even though they agreed not to have kids because of his illness. Norman says he wants to end the Bates family, but his wife wants to keep the baby, so Norman decides he must kill her. Fran tries to stop him, but Norman says she won't change her mind. Then Norman recalls killing his mother. He poisoned a drink for her and Chet. Chet drank it, got sick, and his mother told him to kill Norman. Norman fought Chet off the stairs. His mother chased him, but he pinned her down and covered her mouth. She woke up briefly but died slowly in the basement. Chet tried to strangle Norman but died too. Norman then sat and watched his mother's body. Norman ends the story and hangs up. Later, he calls Connie to meet him at his mother's old house and takes her inside. They start talking about the baby. Connie tells Norman they can be good parents, but Norman takes her upstairs and tells her to wait while he goes to get a knife. When Connie understands what's happening, she feels scared. Norman tries to find the courage to hurt her, but he hesitates. Taking the chance, Connie runs away and hides in the basement. Before she can escape the house, Norman finds her. He traps her against the wall, holding a knife to her throat. For a moment, he sees his own face in the knife and is shocked. Connie tells him he's not the same person anymore. She begs him to give her and the baby a chance and to stop hurting people. She tells him how much she loves him. Moved by her words, Norman drops the knife. They then hold each other tightly. Before going home, Norman sets the house on fire to leave the past behind. But as the fire grows, he has trouble leaving because he sees visions of the people he killed. He falls down the stairs and gets hurt. Outside, Connie grows worried when Norman doesn't come out. Norman crawls to the basement, seeing his mother's skeleton falling on him in his mind. Still, he manages to reach the door, and Connie helps him outside. The next morning, firefighters put out the fire. Norman looks at the house one last time and tells Connie he feels free at last. As they walk away, Norman's mother's ghost screams, asking to be freed. Then, a baby's cry is heard. The Bates family line goes on.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.